We'll see you soon.
Now then, sticking with a weather theme, potholes can be a costly problem for motorists whose cars are damaged and for the councils who have to fix the roads. Now, the government's confirmed that councils in England will get an extra £140 million to mend roads damaged by the winter's wet weather.
Most councils will receive the extra money by the end of this week. Is the money being pledged, though, enough to rid our roads of potholes? Here's what some drivers think.
Councils, they're not doing enough, and I think there's a policy today now that the holes have got to be so deep before they'll do anything. I don't know what the size of the hole's got to be, but it's got to be, I believe, a certain depth before they'll actually turn out. But of course it's damaging all our cars beyond belief.
The road outside our house is absolutely disgusting. It's just full of potholes, and every time I go out in my car, I have to drive like that, you know, to avoid all the potholes, and it's been like that for now 2 years now.
Generally speaking, it's not bad, but side roads are pitted.
Yes.
Where we live.
They're obviously where all the traffic goes, but basically it's, if you like, they're not very deep, but there are lots of them, and you can't avoid them. You've got to drive through them or over them or down them.
Let's talk about this. It's something that drives drivers mad and cyclists mad as well. We're joined by Richard Hayes from the Institute of Highway Engineers and cyclist Fleur Woolley. Good to have you with us.
Morning.
Morning. So, I think, first of all, could you just explain, because we see these potholes all the time, especially after winter. They grow, they just appear out of nowhere. Why?
Well, the rain, in effect, you know, the water on the carriageway, water and carriageway, bit of ice, and you get a pothole.
We haven't had much ice over winter, though, have we?
No, we haven't. But of course, we've had more rain this year than we've had for perhaps, describe it as a couple of generations. So therefore, the effects are being magnified in the water effect. It's breaking down the constituent parts of the road underneath, and it's creating holes which are then, you know, blowing up, as it were, into these ridiculous potholes.
And when we patch them up, or when they're patched up, Richard, is that just a sticking plaster?
Absolutely.
Or because yes. is the very sort of underneath the structure of the road compromised?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, the first issue has to be to take away that particular danger, and these things can be dangerous. They do lead to damage to both the vehicles and also to pedestrians and to other road users. So that's the first issue. The second issue is to try and repair the structure, and you have to do that by simply going back to basics, take it right down to core levels, and then rebuild the road up from that level.
It's not happening, though. Sorry, it's not happening. Go on, you go.
No.
You go.
I've been out filming with road crews who use this, I think it comes from Germany, this tarmac that can go straight in,
yes,
regardless of whether there's water in the pothole. Fantastic, seems to be the answer to everything, but it's expensive.
It's expensive, and it doesn't, in a sense, fix the problem. It simply removes the danger. So you get the surface back to a level you can run on, and it's perfectly safe. But in effect, what you've done is plastered over the hole. You haven't actually repaired the defect.
So we know what happens. We know how it's not being fixed. Fleur, apparently money's going to go to the councils. But is this going to make a difference to your journey? Because it's not going to happen yet, immediately, is it? What's happening to you when you're cycling around?
Well, it's remarkable when you're on a road that doesn't have potholes. That's the big problem. I cycled up from the station last night after I knew I was coming on here. I counted 5 in a mile, and that was avoiding the gutter, avoiding the, you know, being quite. And one of them, it shook my bike so much that something fell off the bike.
Do you feel confident when you're cycling at the moment?
More and more I'm cycling.
And particularly this time of year?
Off-road, traffic-free places, because at least then, if you do fall off, you're not going to get run over.
And have you complained? Have you complained to the council? Do you have any feedback?
If I stopped every time I saw a pothole and complained, I wouldn't be riding my bike. I'd be walking, complaining.
And of course, we hear so much about motorists and the damage it can do to wheels and to tyres and to suspension, etc. But for cyclists, it's far more serious.
You hear, you know, a lady fell from her bike on a pothole and died of her injuries. A man that I know died about a week after falling off his bike after hitting a pothole. So, you know, it's not just damage to your car.
Richard, so what can be done? The councils say, the government says the councils have been given billions of pounds to sort this out, spread across councils. The councils say, look, we've got cuts anyway, perhaps the money needs to be funneled in a different way, or kind of they're covering their bases. Who's right? Who's responsible?
I think there's pressure on local government spending at the moment, which is causing real problems for revenue budgets, the day-to-day maintenance budget. That's been topped up by some additional government support and some planned support in the future, next 5 years or so. But in effect, that money is great, but if it's not used properly and it's not used effectively to, as it were, produce a longer-term repair, then it's really just throwing money at the hole and not doing any great deal with it. We do need to see a much longer-term investment, and we're talking now of 10 to 15 years of prolonged investment to make sure that the structure that we're providing is robust and will withstand the weather and will withstand the effects of all the other sort of traffic conditions that we have to face.
Richard, Fleur, safe cycling. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks very much indeed. Be careful out there.
Indeed.
Speaking of which, the stormy weather may be over, but